In the previous chapter, Saitama adopted some pets, broke a ton of super expensive machinery meant to protect those living in the rebuilt Hero Association headquarters, and returned King's game to him. This time, we see people starting to realize what his true strength is, as well as an unexpected hero considering taking Kate Baldy under his wing, and not to mention a secret meeting about God, as well as how people can be turned into monsters out of the blue. And so without further ado, let's dive right into the chapter titled Secret Intel. Starting from the cover page, we have a chapter relevant image of 4 heroes: Sweet Mask, Zombie Man, Flashy Flash, and Genos. Though we don't see them at the start of this issue, they play a big part later on. With a clear view of the Hero Association's apartment complex, we jump right into some workers discussing the destruction that recently happened. Outside of the control room, someone even goes as far as to say Metal Knight sure did a sloppy job. To be fair, most things that come up against Saitama don't stand a chance. So it's not fair to say this is due to any negligence on Metal Knight's part, but anyways, it is understandable that they would feel that way considering how much they spent on the defense system. Tens and hundreds of billions of dollars. Yeah, you heard that right. That is definitely not an amount that Saitama could ever cover, no matter how much hero work or odd jobs he did to raise the funds. To make matters worse, the staff in the control room believe the robots were destroyed due to a malfunction, and not because of an attack, which is what actually happened. Considering these people likely didn't use their own money and are just security members, isn't it a bit odd for them to take this so personally? It would make more sense if it were one of the people in charge of funding, like Waganma, but no. These low-level grunts are the ones openly complaining. That aside, they eventually share the data and images they gather with Metal Knight to let him know about the disaster that occurred. But they also make sure to also point out that he ignores them a lot. Scratch that. Always ignores them. These 2 nameless men continue to verbally insult him, even while he is not part of their conversation. Unfortunately, Metal Knight had a hand in this mess, seeing as he confidently told them it can repel any and all monsters. It is never a good idea to claim something is unbreakable or unstoppable, because then things like this happen. Never say never, basically. That's when we get a shot of Dr. Beaufoy himself inside of his hidden lab, with numerous screens surrounding him, and this time we get his complete unobscured appearance. As he reviews the footage of the destroyed machines, he goes through each level that Saitama destroyed, from level 4 to level 10. Clearly irate with his development, Dr. Beaufoy can't help but also be surprised by the level of damage, considering he had used his level 10 robots against demon level threats and succeeded in taking them down. Too bad Saitama is certainly beyond dragon level. For those of you who may have forgotten that this buck-toothed man was Dr. Beaufoy, aka the man piloting the Metal Knight robots, there is a nice clear shot of him as well as his name on display. But before we see more of the secretive hero, don't forget to subscribe with notifications on, and smash the like button for more One Punch Man content. Back to the footage, Dr. Beaufoy is able to see exactly the amount of damage and who caused it. That is, unlike the security guards reviewing the footage back at the apartment complex. Though some of the S-Class heroes are aware of Saitama and his power, Dr. Beaufoy tends to avoid meetings and just does his own thing. So he has likely never seen any of Saitama's battles or victories. To him, our Kate Baldy is just another low-level A-Class rookie hero who has no reason to be involved in something this big. But once he looks more closely, he realizes, hey, this guy actually got promoted super quickly from C-Class to A-Class. In fact, it only took him a little over 2 months to reach his current rank. Once that dawns on Dr. Beaufoy, he starts to look at Saitama differently. But to further investigate, what must all tech geniuses do? Break some rules, of course. So that's when we get an S-Class hero hacking into the Hero Association database, trying to find more information on Saitama. It takes the doctor all of a few seconds, as of course he probably even created the security system in the first place. And once Dr. Beaufoy is in, he has access to all of Saitama's documented accomplishments, beginning with his first fight with Speedo Sound Sonic. Funnily enough, Dr. Beaufoy realizes that Saitama participated in the same meteor threat that he did. And so if he had just stayed a bit longer, he would have met Kate Baldy back then. But he chose to save his robot, leaving the damage to Genos, and bang. There is also mention of Saitama battling against the Deep Sea King, as well as helping take down Garo. And these are all events that we know Saitama pretty much single-handedly took down himself. But even with all this data, all Dr. Beaufoy has to say is, that's it? Even looking at Saitama's physical feats means nothing to this man. Talk about a hard critic. But that doesn't mean he's leaving it at that though. If anything, that seemingly normal hero behavior makes him even more curious to find out about Kate Baldy. And upon reviewing the footage, he notices that Saitama is easily worthy of rank S or even higher. Now that's more like it. But instead of seeing it as a good thing that someone that powerful would want to work alongside humanity, he instead sees it as a potential threat. Dr. Beaufoy's gaze turns more serious as he thinks to himself, I'll keep an eye on him. Uh-oh. Next we go back 2 days, but we are still involved with the Hero Association headquarters. This time, Sitch has called some heroes to have a meeting with him. We get a clear view of it being held in conference room 18, while Sitch explains that it is an emergency meeting. That means it is both sudden and very important for them to attend. But unfortunately, sudden doesn't work well among the S-Class heroes. They tend to need notice and a lot of rounding up. Regardless, Sitch has a very serious look as he begins sharing information. Not only have there been numerous reports of unexplained phenomena during the war against the Monster Association, but Sitch seems to believe it has something to do with the prophecy that Shibabawa left them about the planet being in trouble. But at the same time, Sitch isn't absolutely certain about the information coming in or whether it is related to the prophecy. And for that reason, he requests that the heroes there keep the meeting a secret. From what we can see, only Sitch, Sakingar, Zombie Man, Sweet Mask, Genos, and Flashy Flash are attending anyway. Always quick to follow orders, Genos agrees to keep it a secret. And Zombie Man doesn't mind either, but he does have some questions of his own, seeing as he is usually more of a detective than a fighter. It's not so much the secrecy of the meeting that bothers him as the topic of the meeting. And from there, we go to Flashy Flash, who gives us a clearer idea of what is going on. He outright says, it wouldn't be strange for anybody to turn into a monster at any point. And this comment may be due to his encounter with fellow ninja warriors, who monsterize to become stronger. Adding on to what Flashy Flash has said, Sitch admits that the main reason they don't want to go public is because they want to confirm the facts and also come up with a way to combat the monsterization of humans if it is true. After all, they can't just suddenly bring that up and expect society to go on as normal. Sakingar points out that it could cause mass panic since no one would know who or when someone might be next. Sweet Mask, looking all too calm as usual, interrupts a somber meeting to try and figure out what is being discussed. Not only that, but he seems to have not been listening at all, considering he tells them to walk him through everything step by step. Flashy Flash, quick to anger, especially during meetings, confronts him directly by asking if he read the information that was sent to them. But of course, the idle hero was too busy with his career to focus on hero things and didn't have time. Looking bored, he fixes his hair while looking at a mirror as he points out, I'm here just as an advisory position. And okay, I want to be mad, but it's true. He's not technically part of the S-Class, and he is brought on more so when things get really deadly. But at the same time, he has a strong influence within the Hero Association, so it is kind of important for him to be aware of any new threats. If he hadn't added, so just explain it to me briefly if you could, we all would probably have overlooked his lack of focus, but that just makes you want to throw a stack of papers at his head. And considering the irritated looks that both Zombie Man and Flashy Flash have, we can probably assume that they agree. Genos, on the other hand, pulls out his massive pile of papers prepared for a 3-hour lecture, but not even regarding the monsterization issue. He wants to talk about his sensei's activities. Zombie Man can't help but look at him confused, wondering where that came from and why he thinks it is relevant. Sitch, although not saying it out loud, plans to let Genos speak last. Instead, he wants to know what Zombie Man found out while he faced Homeless Emperor, who also used to be human. A projected image of the executive appears behind Zombie Man as he explains his confrontation with him. While he had Homeless Emperor pinned down, the man had told Zombie Man about divine power that was given to him by God. That certainly raises some eyebrows and gets their attention. Sweet Mask may have been unbothered before, but we see him shocked and showing more emotion than usual at that. Even Sitch and Sakingar look afraid to know more. As said, Zombie Man gets into the details of his fight with Homeless Emperor and how he got the information from him. Unfortunately for him, and for us, the man's body crumpled away into salt or ashes before more could be revealed about the so-called god. And being the good detective that he is, Zombie Man realized that Homeless Emperor was being shut down, so he couldn't let any more secrets escape. The conversation seems to open a path to more unexplained events as Flashy Flash asks him if he heard anything telepathically. With a stern look, Flashy Flash tells the attendees that he and Kate Baldy, as well as Monaco, can't forget her, ran into something. Sitch, seeming to ignore the more ominous part of the information, instead asks about Monaco. At that, Flashy Flash says it's nothing. Phew, our one-eyed monster can be safe for at least one more day. Back on the topic, Flashy Flash says the thing was trying to grant us power. If you recall, it also threatened to take their lives if they weren't worthy, which Flashy Flash says was referred to as forfeiture. That's awfully similar to how if you sign a contract but break the terms, you immediately forfeit whatever you were meant to receive in the first place. But in this case, it means you lose your life. When Flashy Flash points out that the being spoke directly into their minds, Zombie Man looks up, thinking hard on that. It dawns on him that Homeless Emperor was hearing something and seeing something, but that was only for us readers, in his final moments. With that in mind, Zombie Man guesses that they must have both encountered this god person and their forfeiture bargain, but in their own ways. Sweet Mask ruins the moment again, going back to being his bored-looking self that doesn't worry or care about monsters beyond killing them if they interrupt his idle work. He does point out that it could just be another high-level member of the Monster Association, but the fact that he didn't have an encounter of his own might be the cause of his disbelief. Flashy Flash says it wouldn't make sense for only one executive to have that kind of power when so many of them could have had it and easily laid waste to the heroes with it. When he mentions that even Blast is working in the shadows trying to find God himself or just track him down, Sweet Mask is caught off guard. What's more, Sitch apparently knows what Blast is doing, or at least why he is gone all the time. Sekingar seems to be totally out of the loop about that as well because he looks at Sitch in confusion. Flashy Flash brings up that Blast sends his regards to Sitch, and the older man admits that he has been keeping it hidden until now, admitting he knew something that he wasn't sharing. And with this, a huge bombshell is dropped on the meeting. For 20 years, 2 decades, Blast has been hunting and fighting this god creature. Even Sekingar cannot believe what he's just heard. Looking a bit worried while everyone else is astonished, Sitch continues on to say he, his partner, and a group of many other collaborators. And this has to be a mention of those people we saw during the fight with Garo who seemed otherworldly and extremely powerful. But back to Sitch, he explains that Blast has been seeking those cubes because they can turn people into monsters. And at that, we get a super interesting shot of Blast and his partner. A dual sword wielding guy with a long light colored ponytail and a map in his hand. They also kind of look like contrasting figures, seeing as Blast is in light colors and wearing a big bulky suit, while his partner has dark colors and more close-fitted material. Flashy Flash remembers the box clearly, seeing as he and Saitama were there and it spoke to them as mentioned. But we go back to Blast with his partner's face still covered, but this time due to a speech bubble instead of having his back turned to us. One of the cubes in question is placed within a machine with a dome around it as they try to analyze how it works and where it comes from. There is another shadowy figure near Blast and his partner, but he is completely hidden from us, so we've got to assume that they are saving his reveal for later on. And then, as if all those reveals weren't enough, we get a flashback to 2 years ago when Blast went up against Elder Centipede. Floating in the air, looking up towards the sky, Blast has a perfect view of the unknown being hidden among the clouds. This was the moment he came into contact with God directly. And if that isn't enough, Blast refused to take the being's power and decided to confront him instead. Sekingar cannot believe what he is hearing, but it makes sense that he would refuse. Sitch admits that if God had wanted to destroy them back then, it easily could have. They didn't have the power they do now, nor could they even detect it with their technology at the time. Because of the threat this god posed, that is why Blast disappeared off the map and started his hunt. He wanted to make sure everyone was safe from this unknowable, unfathomable monster in the sky. And considering Blast is covered in blood and struggling to stand, it is safe to say that Elder Centipede was not the cause. In fact, Sitch says that was the reason Centipede even got away. Flashy Flash, taking this information in stride, seems to understand why Blast would be gone for so long if he is chasing a goal like that. I would even argue he respects it, seeing as ninjas tend to work alone. Zombie Man agrees that it makes sense for the highest of the S-Class to be involved with extremely deadly things that no one else can handle, but also calls him a hard-boiled guy, still keeping with his detective theme. Genos just looks bothered by the information, knowing Saitama could have helped solve this issue if he were involved, or at least that's how he sees it. Sitch denies that would be possible because it requires the use of space-time abilities, and no one else has those as far as he knows. And that's not entirely false. Saitama doesn't really know how to use them. In fact, if not for Garo teaching him how to create a universe within himself, he probably wouldn't have been able to turn back time. However, Genos is presently the only one with proof and the memories of what had happened before this whole reversal of events. And that is when he drops his previously removed core on the table. Of course, to them, it just looks like a piece of machinery. Genos tells them that he wasn't able to fit this information in his report, which is already massive by the way, so he is going to tell them now. And if you know Genos like I do, don't ever let him explain something involving Saitama. He tells everyone at the meeting about everything that happened, from his death to Saitama's fight on Jupiter's moon, and even how the radiation killed all the lower leveled heroes. But what ultimately happens is that he gets carried away as usual and goes on for 4 hours. The more polite attendees stay and listen, probably because they are waiting for the end, but Sweet Mask is gone when it is time for his scheduled work to start, leaving an empty chair behind. Zombie Man looks so tired from Genos' speech that he seems to be withering away, closer to death than any battle could have ever brought him. Even the serious and studious Flashy can't stay awake anymore, falling asleep with a nose bubble. Ultimately, we find out that 90% of Genos' ramblings were about Saitama instead of focusing on the time travel aspect like he was meant to. Genos even accuses Flashy Flash of being bad at gathering intel since he couldn't stay awake, but Flashy Flash points out that it is about quality, not quantity. Where's Saitama to tell Genos to keep it under 200 words when you need him? When Genos gets annoyed thinking Flashy Flash is insulting the information he has about Saitama, Zombie Man has to interrupt and play mediator. Sekingar and Sitch can't help but be perplexed and nervous considering all the information they just learned. It sounds too unreal to be believable, and Flashy Flash points out that even King was only able to use the moon as his punching bag. Did we miss something? When was King ever involved with the destruction of the moon? I'm pretty sure that was during Saitama's fight against Boros, but anyways. Trying to stay impartial, Sitch suggests that they confirm with Saitama if he truly defeated Garo. But that's where things get tricky again. Saitama doesn't remember what happened up until a certain point. Now it just sounds like Genos is covering for his master since he doesn't want the truth to be questioned, but we know it is all factual. Flashy Flash blatantly accuses Genos of lying, to which Genos' eyes turn dark and angry, ready to strike. And to be frank, this is really bold of my boy Flashy Flash. I love him, but this guy got outsped by Saitama, so how is he denying all these facts here? At this point, it looks like he's hating or he's in denial. Anyways, Zombie Man, ever the mediator, says that they can just confirm Garo then if Saitama lost some memories. But guess what? When he went to get interrogated, Garo couldn't remember a lot of things either. At that, Zombie Man gets frustrated by everyone's failing memories when it involves crucial information. But hey, at least they weren't deleted out of existence like some other people who got involved with God, right? Sitch brings the meeting back on track, pointing out that they know for sure that God and his dimension had been more active with their world, and Blast thinks it is because of something in particular. When the next shot switches to Saitama, we can't help but be reminded of the mural that Orochi found near the Earth's core, depicting God and the sacrifice he would need to be made whole. But it is also funny that they say something is drawing God in when they show our Kate Baldy, who is mostly human as far as we know. Sitch closes the topic by saying that Blast will be back soon with more intel and ways to counter God's power and cubes. One of the main ways to avoid being sucked in by him is solidarity and unity, since he prays a more vulnerable people. Genos can't help but make a snide remark about expecting reform in the Hero Association if they want to see unity. But to be fair, it is mostly the S-Class that lacks unity. The lower ranks tend to actually work well together. And yet as Genos is leaving, he says all they need to do is contact Saitama and the issue will be resolved again. He is the best countermeasure apparently. The other heroes just take it as him being obsessed with Saitama. If only they knew how much good Kate Baldy could do if he was taken more seriously, and maybe given a better hero name. Now knowing that Sitch is in contact with Blast, Flashy Flash gives him a message to pass on. I'll make you regret getting behind me. Though it sounds like a threat, the playful smile suggests it is more of a challenge for Blast. With that, Flashy Flash leaves too, and Zombie Man looks disappointed that they don't have much solidarity after all. He also thinks back to his meeting with Dr. Genius, his creator, and how he described a bald man as someone who removed his own limiter. This means Zombie Man will keep in mind what Genos said, wondering if it might be true despite all the loss of evidence. We then switch to Flashy Flash in the hall, realizing he was mistaken when it came to Genos and Saitama's relationship. He thought Demon Cyborg was the one above, but it was clearly Saitama, the senpai. Again though, he accuses Genos of being infatuated, so he doesn't know how much to believe in Saitama's extreme feats. On the other hand, Flashy Flash still wants to consider him a worthy person to keep an eye on. A diamond in the rough. How much do you want to bet Flashy Flash wants to make him a disciple the same way Bang did? Lastly, we see Sweet Mask in his sports car considering all he has been told during the meeting. He doesn't regret allowing Genos to be in the S-Class, meaning he has proven his worth as a hero. And because of that, having someone like him vouch for Saitama and sing his praises for so long, it must mean that Kate Baldy is worth paying attention to as well. Then we see a picture of Saitama in his hero uniform with his hero name, Hagemont, in bold above his photo. And also his previous ranking. Where does Sweet Mask get his outdated information from? Despite that, Sweet Mask looks very intent on finding out more about Saitama, taking very seriously what Genos said. Saitama could become the ideal hero. If you're a webcomic reader, you know how important that is to Sweet Mask. If not, well, you're in for some big surprises. But that's all for this chapter. What do you think about all the Blast information? Did any of it surprise you? And do you think we'll be seeing God anytime soon? Also, where is Monaco? Leave us all your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, I'm Celeste Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.